Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have the pleasure of welcoming us to the 10th edition of Holding Talks. And this evening, we're going to be talking poetry. Last week also we did. It's a 2-weekly activity, even though we are now looking at making it once a week to allow for more people to be able to participate. So, I mean, holding talk is just a way for us to bridge the gap, bearing in mind the fact that we are all locked down at home at the moment, though not locked out completely. That's the benefit of the digital platform. And so as part of some of the works we have been doing, the idea is to get to look at, I mean, poetry as a medium and how exactly poetry as a medium, can be used as a tool for advocacy. I mean, the time we are in presently is a case in study. And so to start this session, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Oga Eriata Oregabo, who also has been doing a great job for the promotion of literature in Nigeria and beyond. That's, I'm telling you, and beyond. And some of us are going to be part of that other part of it very soon, and beyond Nigeria, as a matter of fact. And I also have in the house my brother, Paul Liam, with whom we are also doing a lot together. Yeah. And there is also a lot more to do. Of course, it's my pleasure to welcome our two guests in the house, in person of Bash and Iyanu Adebiyi. And incidentally, it was actually through Bash I got to know Iyanu. I think so. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, what a combination. It was actually through Bash I got to know Iyanu. So I welcome both of you.
Thank you.
At the point, you are going to have to share with us some of your poetry. At the point, maybe one or two. But let me start with these. I just stumbled on these on a page, on the NANTAP page, by one of our...
What page?
No, NANTAP. That's the National Association, our WhatsApp page.
Okay.
It's a poem about COVID. Incidentally, I was thinking of saying after this session, maybe the next session will be, okay, let's talk COVID. Let's see who has written what about COVID. And so let us share, let us read and, and get to, do something. So this morning I saw this on our page by Eki Faith Eboigbe. That's the name of the lady who wrote it. She was the immediate past chairman of NANTAP in Lagos. NANTAP being National Association of Nigerian Theatre Arts Practitioners. Okay, and is actually titled Restoration Virus 2020.
Restoration Virus.
I guess I need to mute all now. Okay. I've muted so that we can have some. It's actually titled Restoration Virus 2020 by Eki Faith Eboigbe. I'll quickly read that. Welcome, Philip, as you are joining us. I salute you, COVID-19, your effortless travel invisible, your presence visible, as we feel the painful touch of your visit, but we are rest assured. The world in turmoil and black, the people anxious and gray, the men helpless and blue, the women solemn and green, the children playful and brown, we are rest assured. The divine works in silence and the world keeps still as the people stand down. The doubting Thomases is cut down. Though the pain is deep, we are rest assured. But your visit is not all gloomy. People serve you with courtesy. They decked in protective costumes. They now maintain personal space and corner. Their garbage are bagged and contained to keep the environment in order. We are rest assured. The world falls in prostration, begging for your restitution, for our wayward desecration to the milk of Mother Earth, Mother Earth mutilation, seeking your divine restoration to make us whole again in your compassion. The future is assured. That is the poem by Ekifit Eboigbe. And I mean, it speaks a lot to me considering the fact that we are looking at today, talking about poetry as a tool for advocacy. So I'm going to unmute Bash and Iyanu.
Yeah.
I'm going to unmute Bash and Iyanu. And so let me start with Bash. I mean, considering the technicality to a large extent of poetry as a medium of expression, how effective would you say, probably for you, or maybe you are speaking for other poets, as poetry being as a medium of advocacy?
Okay. Poetry itself is it's how we exist as humans. When we want to talk about how effective it is as a tool for advocacy, then I would like to assume we're now going to say, are we placing poetry beside other tools for advocacy, which can be other forms of arts? Now, if we're looking at typically the arts, are we going to say how effective is poetry against visual arts, or how effective is poetry against the drama and theater arts, or how effective is poetry against maybe the movies and other stuff? So I've not essentially, I don't have any statistics on how effective it is, because I like to be very pragmatic. Now, if you want to measure effectiveness, you say, okay, let's do, like a proper practical work. You get a cluster of people and you try to test how effective this thing has been. But on a general note, and from my angle, I would like to think in society, there are different forms of communication, and poetry is one of those. But we also understand and also respect the fact that the reach of poetry is not as far as some other form of arts. It's just the way it is now. So yeah, it is effective, to the degree in which it can reach a particular group of people, because that poem speaks to me, because at first I'm a poet. So it's easier to sell a bone to a dog, because a dog understands that a bone is his food. So if you're saying how effective is this poem in terms of reach to me as a poet, of course, I would like to listen. I also know that 3 or 4 weeks ago, Lola Shunai put together some poets in Africa to do poems that are related to, the times we're in. But these are poems done by older poets. There was a poem done by Christopher Kipo, Heaven's Gate. We read Heaven's Gate. We also read this other poem by Wiley Soweto, the South African poet laureate. So yeah, we did that, and it spoke to all of us poets and even beyond. Like I said, measuring the effectiveness of poetry in advocacy is something I cannot essentially say now, because I've not sat down to actually do like a proper data check on how far. But of course, we know and recognize that poetry is a tool for engagement and for advocacy. So I believe, it's reaching, people and society in its own way, in its own special way. Yeah, I would like to say that.
Okay, thank you. So Iyanu, if you can hear me, I guess. Iyanu?
Yeah.
Hello. Now, you are not just a poet, you are an activist. You are involved in activism. And so my question to you would be, following up with Bash, would be that have you had to use your poetry as a tool in the course of your activism?
Yes.
Okay. So can you speak to us about about that, using your poetry as a tool for activism?
Yeah. Well, I think that it has a lot to do with my age bracket and probably target audience, because immediately when I started to do poetry, I just fell right into mental health advocacy. So it's like both of it just came together. So my poetry cannot be removed from activism or from any advocacy. And now thinking about it, when I decided to study law as a course of study, or I wanted to do advocacy. It was the same thing that I wanted to do, but like when I became a poet, I realized that, oh, this is even giving me a higher chance of doing activism and advocacy than law was giving me, you know. So I've actually done a lot of mental health advocacy on my Instagram, and it's been good. A lot of people who do not really look at poetry or do not really enjoy poetry have now begun to enjoy poetry because of the advocacy. Because now, yeah, you're talking about causes that they feel connected to, causes that they feel like it's part of them, like it's something that their lives and their rights are dependent on. So they probably would want to protect, strengthen your voice and make your voice sort of like an echo so that more people will hear about it. So yeah, it's been a ride. It's been a good ride.
Okay. Following up of that, let me just now ask you, in view of what you just said, that how exactly did the poetry find you, or did you settle for poetry as a medium of expression for you?
Okay, for me, I'd always been writing, yeah, but I never really took it seriously, and I wasn't really into poetry so much, but I've always been a literary person, basically. But what really sparked the interest for me was when I was having suicidal thoughts and having like serious mental health issues, and I decided to start reaching out to people, basically, because I felt like if this is going on with me, then probably it's going on with other people. Yeah. So I found a lot of Instagram poets who were doing, you know, some of that work. And I also had quite a number of friends who were like having those mental health issues and we're talking about it. So it just was kind of like a conversation that started. And I realized that writing short poems, you know, was helping people feel more encouraged and helping people, well, not really manage their mental health, but it was still helping in some sort of way. So I felt like, okay, let me do this. And then all of a sudden I realized that, okay, I have fallen in love with this poetry thing. That was basically how it started.
Okay, while I go to Bash, get ready
Yeah.
to do us a poem. Get ready to do us a poem. Okay, Bash,
Yes.
welcome. Yeah, now, I have had the course of reading or listening to a couple of your poems, and I must confess today that one of the most fascinating to me has been there is a lunatic.
In every town.
There's a lunatic,
Yes,
lunatic in every town.
and me too.
And of
I
course,
agree.
even in every clan,
I agree.
even in every clan and every house,
In
there is
everything.
one lunatic or the other. I mean, talking about, just like I asked Iyanu now, you know, when people talk about Wole Soyinka being difficult to understand, when they talk about obscurantism, they actually, my understanding, I'm not speaking for them, my understanding is that they're actually talking more about his poetry than his plays or whatever. His plays, I mean, plays are much easier. And so, benefit of the doubt, I mean, a lot of people write poetry today, and when you read, you put it down, you don't even know where to pick it from. So that gives air to the belief that poetry is difficult to understand. And so when we are talking about poetry as a tool for advocacy now, I mean, you have had to, just like she mentioned, I have also listened to one of your poems on mental health, which to me is an advocacy. I mean, can you take us through some of the advocacy work you have had to do, use poetry? I mean,
okay.
to execute.
I think that for me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, now it freezes before.
Can
It
you hear me?
freezes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear now.
Yeah, one that stood out for me was the 2018. I performed at the European Union Nights for the Human Rights. European Union Nights for Human Rights. And the poem I did was titled Freedom Speaks. And that poem, essentially, I was trying to just, talk about what freedom means to me as an individual, and the fact that freedom does not matter if you are crossed or straight. Freedom is, just your ability to just exist within your own skin, within your own space, the capacity to express how you feel about issues. And the fact that all men are born equal, without indignity and rights, without question of their skin color or whatever. So that was a situation where I was invited by the European Union, and of course, the European Union, we're talking about Europeans, and I was about the only Black person in the room, and I was a poet for the night. Yeah, so it was quite touching for me to be performing to a cluster of all white people in my country and doing a poem that actually celebrates the freedom, freedom of color, freedom of race, and whatever. So it was quite significant. And another place I did something that was quite moving and significant for me was the 23rd session of the African Parliamentary Union meeting in Abuja, where all the parliamentary unions in Africa meet. They had their session. So I was invited to do a poem about unity for Africa and all of that, and it was really an important point in my journey as a poet. So essentially, I've always wanted. I feel poets are like prophets. I feel poets are like the voice and conscience of society. And there was something a notable person said, but I've forgotten, but it's mentioned something like, whenever society is going astray, it is the job of the poets to bring society back,
bring them back on track.
So that quote for me is very important as a poet, because from time to time, not from time to time, always it seems like society is actually losing its head and everything is going off.
Yeah.
I mean, we are currently in a health crisis as a people. So the job of a poet is to help people to come back to a level of normalcy, if possible, and give people a reason to believe again, in society, to believe in humanity, to believe that, no, we are actually humans, because when we lose our humanity, then essentially we are all lost and gone. Because if you actually look at situations where there are wars and crises, it's because people have lost their humanity. People have lost the simple move to negotiate, to talk, to apologize, to say I'm sorry, to let go of a grudge or a difference or something, to accommodate, to tolerate. So when we lose these little things that make us human, then crisis is bound to occur. So a poet's job is actually to always draw us back to our level of humanity, whether it's in a piece that evokes some form of advocacy, or a piece that just talks about how beautiful a flower is, or a flowing stream. That is still a poet doing his job as a messenger for humanity, essentially. Yeah. I hope
Thank you, Bash. So let's go back to Iyanu now for a piece of poetry. And so anyone, if you have a question, please do indicate. After this poetry break, we'll take your question before returning to Bash for his own poetry rendition. Yes, please get it ready. Iyanu, over to you.
Oh, is Iyanu there? I think her mic is mute.
That's what I am looking at now. Yeah, sorry. Okay. You are good to go now. So unmute from your end. I have unmuted you here. Iyanu, please unmute from your end.
Let me check.
Iyanu has followed the wind of your voice.
I have unmuted you here, so unmute from your end.
He has done that.
Yeah.
Iyanu has raptured with your voice, sir.
Iyanu, we have you now.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a piece that I wrote about the Chibok, the Chibok
Yeah.
girl.
This
And
COVID-19, special request from me, sir. Special request from me. Special request from all the way from South. Please
Wow.
do something COVID-19.
COVID-19 poem, Iyanu.
oh, I should do the poem.
You have a COVID-19 poem?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. If you do and you have it ready, I mean, let's give it to our South brother. All the way from South. Before he will carry placard.
Palliative poetry.
No.
If you have it ready, but if you don't have it ready, let's go on with this and then we can take that later.
No, it's fine. I have it here, so I'm just going to read it. I'm going to titled All of Us.
Okay.
Yeah. All of us are sitting within a pandemic. It used to be far from us. Now it is before us, beside us, behind us. We carry the pestilence in our hair and under our fingernails. It is sleeping on our streets. We are running helter-skelter to escape it. It clings to our shoes and our clothes, spreads on everything we touch. Some of us will bow to wash our hands, a kind of ritual cleansing to keep death at bay. Some of us will not. All of us are in danger. Some of us will yield our bodies to the disease, and the virus will jump out of our mouths in droplets like bullets. Some of us will not. All of us are in danger. Some of us will allow the virus to turn our bodies into weapons of mass destruction, become a kind of suicide bombing to obliterate the earth, spread death, spread death. Some of us will not. All of us are in danger. But we will get through it. Isn't this how we formed fire out of stones? How we entered the moon in fierce darkness and became friends with it? We turned beast in the face of everything that threatened to shut down our lives and world and won. We are the ones who held the battered heart of this planet and whispered a healing song. It is well, it is well. If all of us will become soldiers again and fight, seek fortress in solitude, stay home and build immunity, give the vulnerable ones a fighting chance, wash the poison off our hands, refuse to be agents of this disease, spread hope, spread light. This virus will not kill us. We will kill it first. All of us will subdue the darkness. All of us will overcome the pandemic and the fear of it. All of us will spread life. Spread life.
Well,
that's it.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you.
It's a
Thank
waiver,
you.
it's a waiver, it's a
Well
waiver,
done.
it's a waiver, it's a waiver, it's a waiver.
That's a good one.
you.
Let me unmute us very quickly and take
Yes.
response. And take response to that point.
Well done.
Thank you.
That was nice.
Bye,
Can we
tutor.
take some response to that poem? Sheung Odukoya, are you there?
Oh, yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone.
Response. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Iyanu. That was a very lovely poem.
Thank you so much for listening.
It started like on a okay, let me say on a very real note, a bit, scary and all of that, but it gradually took us through what we can do, and it ended on a note of hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Oga area.
Why are we not see,
Yes,
she doesn't have a picture. She doesn't have a video. Why are we not seeing her? We want to see her.
No, she's there.
Not her.
Okay, you mean
The
Sheung?
picture I've seen her.
I'm not the guest.
Maybe
I'm
it's
not
at
the guest of today.
Okay, Sheung is lying low today. Okay, Oga area.
What do you want me to? What do you want me to say now? I've enjoyed myself.
If you.
I'm just enjoying myself. Very nice poem.
Okay, all right.
All of
My
us.
brother Honors, you requested for COVID-19 and you have it. Any response from you?
Yeah, I want to say big shout out to her for making this wish come to pass. I really want to hear how I've been following her on social media. I really want to hear her say it to my face. So I loved it and it was really inspiring. I think the
Wow.
message is well understood.
What is it called?
Well done, Iyanu.
Yeah.
Okay,
Meanwhile,
Okay.
Jerry.
Asas, hold on, please.
yeah, okay,
Asas, hold on. Okay.
okay.
Let's tidy up my look. They're saying
Okay,
like
Ariel,
this.
Asas.
Okay, thank you very much for this. I want
Yeah.
to appreciate you for doing for what you are doing
This one.
because
have-
like Mr.
Oh, my voice.
Mike said, in terms of engagement and advocacy, all what they've all said about
Palliative poetry.
poetry, I think they all go in line with what I also say.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we are all
Yes.
on the same page as far as poetry promotion is concerned.
Concern.
And for you to do what you are doing is also a form of advocacy in its own right. So I appreciate you for what you are doing, but I want to plead that, you know, this is Lagos.
Yeah.
We need to get home on time. I want to start hitting the road. If I had to stay in the office for extra 2 hours, because
Yeah.
I close at
Police.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
had to stay because I want to see these beautiful faces again, you know.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So
Thank you
whether
so
we
much.
like it or not,
Thank you,
whether we
sir.
like
Thank
it or not, COVID also has its own advantage on all of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that poem, all of us actually, I mean, yours
All
is
of us. Yes.
Thank you
so
so
thank
much.
you very much. I
All right.
would like to take my leave. According to what one guy said,
I just give
he
me.
said in pidgin, say, "Oh boy, make they go house, so me they not gonna take me take shine. Make police not gonna take."
When I don't go take you, when I don't go
You
take you,
just
do
give-
advocacy.
Everybody can shine.
You go just
Thank you
give
so
me
much.
this-
We appreciate.
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
appreciate
Okay,
you.
me not know you for worry. They say make you dey go out. Me not know you take hands calls.
So that's what the matter be.
You know, for instance, now before I take, okay, let's take Osas.
No, I just want to tell her well done, and
Okay.
that this is actually a good one. And I'm suggesting maybe she can also attempt a palliative poetry.
What?
There is a
Okay.
COVID-19 poetry, so
She will
there's
consider
attempt a
it
palliative poetry.
and do an advocacy for palliatives. Okay, noted. Okay, thank you, Osas, and thank you, everyone. For instance, if you look at the first poem I did, the first poem by Eki Eboigbe, my former NANTAP chairman, Lagos, and this also, and we are talking about advocacy, poetry as a tool for advocacy. I mean, like Bash said, nobody has really sat down to do a study and conduct a measure for us to say, this is how effective it has been or not. But the fact remains that poetry as a means of expression, as a tool for communication is, good enough for advocacy, like we have seen in the case of Iyanu and the other poem, this poem, All of Us by Iyanu, and the poem Restoration Virus 2020 by Keboigbe. It means that for those of us who have the gifting for poetry writing, if you have not retired like me, I am returning now, don't worry. If you have not retired from writing poetry, it remains a tool. So let's now go quickly. I unmute you. That's Bash. Let's come to you, Bash, now and get to hear from Bash. Which poem are you blessing us with? You can unmute from your end. I have unmuted you here, but I guess you need to unmute.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So this is where I'm supposed to perform or read a poem.
Whichever. If you perform, read, or anyone.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my laptop just went down, and I wanted to read a poem from my laptop. Some new poems I'm writing, and it's so painful. I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it's dead.
Wow.
So let me do something. I'm coming. Just a second. The laptop just went dead without my permission.
Maybe you didn't give it palliative, so
palliative care.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, I've not been writing COVID-19 poems. I'm a very strangely, I don't know why, but I've noticed that I'm not always in the mood to write when the thing is happening, hot.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I usually write maybe after the thing, not when the thing is happening. So I don't know, not really sat down to write anything. I've just been experiencing the experience of the thing and the period. So I do not know. Okay, help me now. What should I do?
Maybe lunatic.
No.
Since your battery is gone, so
okay,
whichever one you have handy.
Well, let me look for something on my phone. I can.
Okay.
Just a second.
Yeah.
Or should I just recite Freedom Speaks?
Yeah, you are at liberty. Just
okay. Let me recite Freedom Speaks.
Okay.
So I did this during the European Union Nights of Human Rights. It's titled Freedom Speaks. Freedom exists in small places close to home. She once spoke through the broken jaws of Jim Crow's laws. She spoke of carnage. She spoke of the Holocaust. She spoke of child labor during the Industrial Revolution. Freedom. Freedom is like frozen hopes in the face of a child in North Korea, hoping to someday welcome the world into his stead. His arms are open wide, like flowers groomed as his backyard open patch. Freedom questions in those beads of tears down the cheeks of a mother holding the lifeless body of a son, another victim of hate somewhere in Tripoli. And the firm grips of a beggar's bow in South Sudan under the scorching sun, yet he says yes to his heart, yes to his rights, and yes to his life. Freedom speaks in black and white, red or burnt amber, pygmy or messiah, Buddha or the crescent, bending by the knee, plucking chaplets, burning incense, forehead to ground, saluting the deity in the Vatican, in the Buddha, or over in the city pub. But in the cloak of our common humanity, freedom speaks to all of us. In the quiet resolution of the crossed or straight, of those with hopes held behind bars, of the free with little rules, the street urchins, even the wolf on Wall Street, the adolescent girl owning her sexuality, or that individual seeking a public office. The capitalist dream, he builds Legos of indices, disc jockeys and food vendors serenading the ghettos of Lagos. She speaks through the walls of Gulag. She was riveted at the bottom of a totem pole. Libya, Somalia, Syria. Freedom walks the streets of Zimbabwe. She was peopled by a controlled resolve. She sounds like laughter shared by the paved curbs in Freetown. There she speaks in Creole. She aches the exchange of beer by migrants somewhere in Sao Paulo. There she speaks in Portuguese. Freedom is today, freedom is us, freedom is me, freedom is you, freedom is us knowing that we can walk downtown Johannesburg and a Nigerian wouldn't have to look over his shoulders. Freedom is why we do what we do. Freedom is expression, freedom is advocacy, freedom speaks in black and white. Thank you.
Thank you. And so, I mean, in summary, freedom is all of us.
Yeah.
Freedom is all of us. And
freedom from COVID-19.
Freedom from COVID-19, yeah.
I mean, freedom is everything. I mean, you know. Thank you, Bash. I mean,
that was so well not rehearsed. Forgive me, guys. Forgive me.
Okay.
I wanted to read, but my laptop went down.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly take a comment from Auntie Eboigbe. I know I didn't prepare her for this, but I read her poem earlier, and then she joined us. Auntie me. You have the floor. Talk to us. You have the floor. Oh, okay, okay, I got that. Okay. She's actually in a meeting, but cannot afford not to be here. So she is watching us, but she cannot talk. Okay. I mean, that's the poet who wrote the earlier poem we read. She's not.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
she's not
first
able
one,
to
right?
talk. She's in a meeting. She's just watching us with one eye. Okay. To everyone, the floor is open if we have questions for Iyanu or Bash. Any question? Anyone with a question for Iyanu or Bash? Paulian is back in the house. Paulo.
Yeah.
Any question for Bash and Iyanu? Or Bash or Iyanu?
Well, for me, I would rather enjoy the presentation as I've been doing. Sorry, a while ago I had connection problem, but I think I'm back now. Well, for me, like, I agree with most of what Bash and Co was saying about determining the effectiveness of measuring the impact of poetry as a tool. But I wanted to also know that beyond using poetry, for advocacy and whatever, I don't know how to put it. You see that there is a disconnect between society and the individual poet as we have it these days. Like most poets these days say they're doing what they call confessional poetry, and then this is like a personal thing. If Can we take these forms of poetry as also advocacy poetry, and
Hold it, Paul. Paul, hold it. Go on. Please go on, Paul.
Okay, I was saying that my question to the guest would be, seeing that these days we have most young people, young poets, saying that they are doing confessional poetry.
Confessional, yes.
And then this confessional poetry, yeah, I would say is a form of advocacy, right? But it is personal advocacy. And then I am concerned how this could affect the large in terms of how advocacy
Network. Okay. Paul, I'm sure you're done, right? Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear the final part of your question, but maybe I should put it this way. Bash, confessional poetry, spoken word poetry. What's the difference?
Not that word. I don't know where it was coined from, but this is like the first time I'm hearing confessional poetry. But
there is also the one they call declaration.
Declaration.
Yeah.
You know that humans communicate in various forms. If I understood the question very well, were you asking if confessional poetry essentially can be used as a tool for advocacy?
For advocacy.
Is that what he meant?
Well, the final part of the question was not very clear.
Let me come again.
Okay, yes, please.
Can you hear
me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Now,
is that what he meant?
Is this. We have confessional poets, young people especially, who are concerned about their individual needs, right? Now, I am concerned. I am wondering how pursuing personal advocacies could translate into a national advocacy, for example?
Oh,
Can we say the individual's advocacy translates into a national advocacy or into an advocacy that would better the larger society?
Okay.
Clearer now.
Okay, I got you
my question now.
Very well, very well. I would like to also add to what you are saying. Lately, the trend in poetry, it's lately, and I'm talking about the last 2 years. The trend, when I mean the trend, I'm talking about the kind of poetry that this supposed international institutions sort of give credence to. They give a lot of credence to very personal poems that talks about vulnerability, sexuality, very personal poems. They don't essentially give credence. When I say give credence, I'm talking about the awards now, the awards and the mentions and all of that. Look at most of the poets that are being given awards. Even the guy that won recently, Jericho Brown, the Pulitzer Prize, a few days ago, his kind of poetry is very personal poems. So yes, I agree that some of these institutions are sort of giving credence to poems that are very personal, that come from a very personal angle. They don't essentially even pay attention to revolutionary poems or advocacy poems in that sense. But again, before society, the larger society can heal, the individual must heal. That is what I see. Before the larger society must heal, the individual must heal, because the larger society is like a merging of every other person. So I don't think there's anything wrong with people doing poems that are quite confessional. Yeah, they talk about themselves, they talk about their body, they talk about their sexuality, their beliefs, and all of that. I think if the individual gets to a level where his self-awareness and self-awareness is settled, it sort of just rubs off on society itself, because society cannot do without the individual. But again, there are poets that still do poetry for advocacy and all of that. I still do poetry for advocacy, irrespective of the fact that nobody is exactly looking at advocacy poems for awards and the likes. So if you look at Koleka Putuma that won, which of the prizes did Koleka win? The South African poet. She's a queer poet, and her poetry is about sexuality, her sexuality, she being confident in her body and all of that. Jericho Brown too is gay. I just want to put this prize for poetry. It's still about being comfortable in your skin, as being comfortable with your sexual orientation and all of that. Our dear Romeo, the same thing. So if you look at it, it's more of the individual now. That's the trend. We hope it might change in years to come. We don't know, but I just want to advocate and say the individual has to heal.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, the individual has to heal before society as a whole heals.
I
That's
just have to
Sorry,
I just have to come in a bit because I have to leave also.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay, you can go ahead. You have the
floor.
Thank
you for hosting this. Oh, okay. I said thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I think I've been able to listen a bit, though I'm actually, like I said to you, in the middle of another meet. I had to pause that a bit. So so I like the whole idea. Thank you, and well done, Jerry, as usual. Well, like I said to people when they ask me, situation actually influence what I write. And because again, I write actually for advocacy. I write to bring hope to people. I write to reorientate the mind of people. And that's what actually wrote the poem that I sent to you. I salute you, Convict 19. I actually wrote two. I will send the other one. The other one actually is titled When Givers Become Beggars. Again, that one actually came also, it's inspired by COVID, and it actually has come because of the work that I do. I work with an NGO, and around this time, we've actually gone out to do a lot of humanitarian work, giving palliatives, food, and I've seen, witness people that usually they're hard, but because of the situation of the of COVID, it came in unaware. Nobody really was expecting. People were not prepared. So what usually happens is that they become I don't want to use, it's not derogatory when I say beggar, but that is the situation they found themselves. They don't want to beg, but they are not about to die of hunger either. So
Exactly.
one of the other one that I've written is when givers become beggars.
Beggar.
It's I will send that also forward to you.
Okay.
It's quite
Okay.
interesting. The situation that we find ourselves is quite interesting, but we
Yeah.
need to keep hope going. We need to continue to, as creative, actually, we need to bring succor and hope to people. We need to do that through our work, our writing. So again, like I said, thank you. It was nice being here.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, Auntie Egi. We are pleased to have you. Thank you,
Welcome.
thank you. All right. Okay,
Thank
Bash.
you then. Enjoy.
Yes.
Do you want to wrap it, or I can go to Sheung? Are you done?
Yeah. Essentially, I think
Okay.
I'm done.
So Sheung, over to you.
Okay.
Okay. Done, Bash. I enjoyed your poem. And for me, it just brings home the subject of discussion today about poetry being a veritable tool for advocacy. If you ask me, even though we're making the point that there have been no specific measurement, I would say that art generally is subjective. So it's in from the perspective of the recipient. And all three poems that have gone on today for me have been good examples of advocacy. I mean, if advocacy is about speaking on behalf of or in support of issues or situations, then poetry is about is one aspect of art, and it's about having a voice. And so it depends on what you use that voice to speak for. Iyanu, for instance, has done a lot on mental health. Bash's poem talked about freedom, which is a basic need of every human being. Iyanu's poem, the other poem of Iyanu talked about COVID-19, and so did the first poem. So I think this has evidenced for all of us that poetry is a veritable and can be an effective tool of advocacy. And to the other speaker who talked about confessional poetry and how it fits in as advocacy. I think it's also important that the individual is able to have a voice, because there are people who a lot of people are suffering in silence. And if it is poetry that gives them a voice, I think it should be encouraged. And also, a lot of times we think that we are the only ones that are going through a rough patch. But sometimes when you speak out, you don't know just how many people in your audience or even in the world you are speaking to and you are speaking for, and you are giving hope. So while it might be personal, you don't know just how many people are wearing those shoes. So from my perspective, it also can serve as a form of advocacy. And even though it's speaking on an individual level, speaking for many people that we might not even be able to count. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Auntie Shine, that's Sheung Odukoya. She's Auntie Shine of our own world. Anyway, that's it. And I'm going back to Iyanu now. Before Bros Onos came up with that is a placard carrying request. You are going to give us another poem. I would like to still take that poem.
Iyanu.
I'll unmute. You are unmuted. Yes.
Okay. So this poem I wrote it about the Chibok girls and the ladies in Abuja who were raped.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay. The ladies in Abuja who were raped and accused of being prostitutes.
Okay.
So here goes.
Yeah.
It's titled "To Be Silent After Chibok, After Abuja is to Die with Akimbo." We sit behind the wall with withered tongues. Chibok is a burning forest in our throats. We speak her name with anguish. We are the spirit of disappearing women. We tore the sky in two, screaming our children's names begging them to come back home. We wail, drag our bodies through the mud, call on government, call on God. We curse the day we opened our eyes to this emptiness. Bring back our girls is still a siren in our lungs. We still want our daughters back. Look for them in the eyes of urgencies, taste their absence, trace their silence from the bottom of a stranger's laughter to the top of our grief. Our hearts are throbbing with hope and death, hope and death. This pain is Satan's poem we are forced to read, and we cannot stop the myriad metaphors of hell from falling through our eyes. The air is dripping our blood. The sky is sick with sorrow. In Abuja, a small village of stars have gone missing again. We are the ones who disappear. But this time you see us, we cannot see you. We sit in darkness, turn our backs to the light in order to save enough face to tell the tale of our own destruction. Those commissioned to protect us have raided us, took our bodies as bribe for a freedom we were born with. They have touched what should not be touched without permission, left us drowning in bad water of shame. Our mothers diminished themselves to make space for the things now threatening to kill us. They vanished to keep the peace, and we are descendants of the same battered bones, offerings of a million years of violence and oppression. We inherited yards in our mothers' mouths until our mouths were too swollen to make a sound, but to still be silent after Chibok, after Abuja, is to die with arms akimbo. But this country is fire, burning women. We cannot remain silent or we will turn to ash, and who set us ablaze will not matter. Instead, they will say our skin is too combustible. They will accuse us of not crying enough tears to quench the fire. They will say our blood has turned to smoke. Our bones became firewood because we wanted it. Say we scorching flames to devour us. And who set us ablaze will not matter. This is how they snatch away mercy from the bodies that gave birth to them. We, the women, wow. We, the earthly womb of God, we, the portal of all human life, we shall live through it. We'll shift through this darkness until we find ourselves at the beginning of light. We who cradle heaven's weeping face with a smile, we who meet death in the sun, we shall choose to live.
Oh, thank
shout.
you. Yes, we can shout. We can shout.
Oh, okay.
You can shout. You can shout.
Iyanu, Iyanu.
Iyanu, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good and a very deep one. Thank you again, Iyanu. I mean, you know, let me do a confessional poem now that to you that you have two apostles in my house that are telling me when COVID is over, I will just ship them to your house to come and live. Thank you. And Bash, I'll take the last word from you. You happened to be our facilitator last year.
Yes.
For the Nigeria Poetry Feast.
Yes.
And just a couple of days ago, one of the girls who participated in that session sent me an email with 55 poems.
Whoa!
She had never written a poem all her life until that day.
Wow.
Never written a poem. She was the head girl of the school. She has passed out now.
What it's all about.
I just saw an email and she said, "This is my poem I've been writing since after that session." Now, like 2 weeks ago or last week, we had a session with Ariata talking about poetry, the correlation between poetry and the society. And this is not also too very far from it. Given this example I just cited, I mean, what are you guys doing what are you doing in terms of recruiting or building the capacity of younger generations in cultural expression using poetry as a means of expression? Is there anything you have done or you are doing at the moment?
Okay, it to be very, I'll answer this briefly and quickly. First, before we the so-called I don't know what to call ourselves, but we have to work on ourselves first. We have to, like really get to a place where learning never ends. Actually, so we must keep learning. We must keep learning. I try to learn as much as I can learn. You just have to keep trying. It's an attempt. But what I try to do, I have this quarterly performance poetry class. I started in 2017, and I've been, I've tried to keep it up. Self-funded, quarterly performance poetry class. I have
these things are usually self-funded, so it's understandable.
I have a page poet come. Sorry? Huh?
I said these things are usually self-funded.
Yes, so I have a page poet, teach them page poetry, then I teach them performance poetry. That's for me. That's one thing I would always do as long as I'm alive. We had to even hold back on the next class because of COVID, but I'm thinking of having it online, maybe within the weeks to come. So but we just need to keep. I try to mentor as much as I can. Whenever they reach out to me with their poems, I try to go through it and give them feedback. I do blogs. I try to be as open and as ready as. It's just to be open and ready and just talk to them. But again, like I said, we ourselves, the people they say they look up to, we have to always do the work of learning also continuously.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Iyanu, your last word.
Okay, before I say anything, I just wanted to say something that Sabash has done a lot for me. Being a young poet, I actually tutored under him, and it helped me a lot. And also, just sometimes you don't really even have to do anything. Just people watching your performances, or just really just watching you, also they can learn from it. So yeah, you've done great for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bash.
Thank you.
I'm running to the kitchen now. The oil is burning.
No problem. We'll join you. It's almost time for item 7.
Yes, so.
Okay,
go ahead.
So afterwards, I believe in the potential of poetry being a very effective tool for advocacy. I know that it has so much it is doing right now, especially because of the unique circumstances we find ourselves in as Nigeria. I believe that if there are more people willing to invest into the industry, and if more poets are willing to take poetry as a serious, then it would live up to its potential. Basically, that's just what I have to say.
All right, thank you, Bash Amuneni. Thank you, Iyanu Adebiyi. I want to thank you, Pauliam, and my brother from the South. Thank you for staying true. I kept saying this every of this edition that I have more people sending in apologies for not being able to join because of data than apologies. I can understand, even though we have the benefit of this digital platform. When they tell us about what happened in 1912 and 1918 to 1920, the truth of the matter is that we are better off, because that 100 years ago, they don't have this digital platform that we are running to. Probably we would have had more cases of mental health issues and depression. But with the digital platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Zoom, Teams, Discord, all of them, we have something to turn to. So it helps to keep our sanity. And so, but for some people, a lot of people want to join, they send messages, say, sorry, I would have loved to be there. thing, data, this thing, it's understandable. And so, but for those of us who are here, I really appreciate us. Even for those who have left, Oga Ariata, I noticed that for almost 10 minutes, he was driving and he was still, on with us. That shows, the interest. For Liam Shionwodukoya, I'm seeing Fola Shade here. And then I also have Mohammed Tajuddin, who had audio issues. He wanted to talk, but I think he couldn't even hear us clearly. But he's been here from the beginning till now. So I want to appreciate. So this is the 10th edition. Oh, okay. You finally have your.
Yes. Yeah, you
Sorry, we appreciate you for as many of us that are able to join us on Saturday. We would also appreciate if you join us. So I want to say a very big thank you to us. This is live on the Aroja Royal Theatre YouTube, and for the first time, I overcame that technical hurdles, and it's also live on my Facebook timeline. It's also live on the Facebook timeline, so we can get to share to people, to watch it, later on. So once again, I say thank you for coming around, and see you another time. Thank you.
Bye.